So, Graham, you've shamed me into standing up on week 3. Look at me.
I know, and I'm sitting this week as well. Typical.
What can we do? One week will be in sync. So, Graham, this week we're going to one of your favourite subjects, I know, which is design. But before we do that, any thoughts or any questions coming in the last week for us?
Had a cracking question in on authenticity and sad fishing, and which way do you go? So kind of, is it okay to show some vulnerability when you're doing a pitch to a client or not? What's your view?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's deal with sad fishing first, because that was one that I'd never heard of before. And apparently it's when you sort of do the woe is me story, which in my opinion just isn't appropriate really in this setup, or indeed in any setup. But I actually do think that vulnerability and authenticity are very, very connected with each other. And there are a couple of great ways you can show those. One of which is showing some of the struggles in your story that you've had to go through, because too often I hear people saying, we did this and then we did this and then we did this and we were great, look at us. There was no struggle there, but the things you had to overcome in order to achieve what you've done is vulnerable, and it's also authentic, and it really grabs the attention as well. And then the other thing, which actually I find men are really bad at doing, is using some emotive words and saying things like, well, what I really love about this, or what excites me about this particular thing. So those words do two things. A, they prompt the brain of the listener to think, well, if they're excited or they love it, I'd probably better listen to find out what's exciting or lovable about it. But it's also your opinion, which is vulnerable. And the worst thing that could happen is that somebody disagrees with you, in which case you're into a discussion. So that's the way that I would recommend that people get some vulnerability and indeed authenticity into their presentations.
Great answer. You're showing you're giving them reason to kind of trust you as well, right? You're a real person, and people buy from
Absolutely.
Real people they know and trust. So you're helping move that forward.
Now, listen, let's move on to design, because I remember in week 1 when we were talking about this, you made the analogy of the theatrical performance, and you have to get your script right, you have to get your performance right, you have to get your props right. And this week we are absolutely moving into your sweet spot, which is the area of props. Do you want to give us some idea, some of your thoughts around that, some of the horrible stuff you've seen?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to caveat this, I am not a designer myself. We've got a brilliant team of people who are fantastic designers back at SP. But certainly there's still the old adage about first impressions counting. So right from the proposal and the pitch, if it looks like you've not put a lot of due care and attention into the materials that you're presenting or putting in front of a client, it doesn't look tailored to them, doesn't look specific to them. It just starts on a bit of a downer, to be honest. It shows you don't really care and haven't put much effort in. So creating collateral that looks and feels and shows some empathy and understanding with the client is really important.
Do you know, Graham, there was a forensic scientist called Edmund Locard who came up with the science of forensics, and he said that his phrase was that every contact leaves a trace. And I think that what you're talking about there is exactly that. Every point of contact with the client leaves a trace of whether you care or whether you're actually looking out for them.
So of course there's the, does the staging look fantastic? But then of course you get into a little bit more of the detail, and this is where the script and the kind of visuals that you're presenting need to come together and work hand in glove. They need to work together. I've seen some really, really professional people who really know their stuff presenting things, and it's been a car crash. Why? Because the slide that's popping up behind them is so crammed full of content,
Horrible.
Either bullet points or just poor visuals. It's completely distracting. And I switch off from listening to the person, which is the most important thing, and start reading through the slides.
Well, that's a good point. It's a great point, because I think if you have taken the effort to write something down, people think I should take the effort to read it, and they stop listening to you. Can't do two things at once. Can't read and listen at the same time.
Users, you need to start with working out what you're going to say first. Okay, and then adding the design to that. So you've got to have your good story. When you add your design to that, it's just supplementing it and helping you get the points across you want to make. It's not the other way around.
That's exactly the mistake people would do. They go to the slide deck and then they think, how am I going to talk to the slide deck? A friend of mine said to me last week, you can view slides in two ways. Either they're a pair of running shoes that make you go faster, or they're a pair of crutches which make you walk in the first place. Yeah, and if you're using it as a crutch rather than a pair of running shoes, you are in serious trouble. Yeah. Show us something horrible, Graham.
I've got a slide here that is, in answer to maybe a customer's question, tell me about your company's history. So it would be a boring question, right? And this is not, even though this is a bit of SP's company history, this is not a slide that we've ever presented. We put it together to show what a messy, busy slide could look like. You've got full sentences and words in there at the top that you might start reading. We've got then every single little point of interaction or anything that we've ever done over the years on the screen. So that pops up. It's
horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. So say we wanted to present this a little bit better. Maybe at a high level, along the lines of what you're saying there, David. Maybe what we could do is go something like this. We've been providing our services and supporting our clients for 4 decades now, helping sales team to win for 30 years. We were founded back in the 80s in the US, and been delivering work for clients for over 20 years in the UK, and over 10 years actually in the Netherlands when we opened our organization over there.
I love that.
A little bit better, kind of more visual, a little bit of storytelling, which is basically saying the same thing as on the other page, just at a sort of a higher level.
And what I love about it, Graham, is, as you say, there's action in there. There's the visuals. It reads left to right. You know, the story unfolds left to right, which certainly in the West is how our eyes naturally read across a page. And then on the top there, it reads top to bottom as well when we get to the right-hand side. Great slide. Love it. What I was going to say is what I really like about these slides is all of them trigger a story. I mean, they're not giving you everything. As I'm sitting there looking at them, there are questions in my mind that I want to ask you, which would trigger a story on your part.
So that's the sort of way I think people need to think about their presentations, thinking about the story they want to tell, and then thinking about the visuals and the design that then could support that story as they go.
Like I said earlier on, some of those slides really trigger some questions in me, and the answers to those questions would be the stories. So I think that maybe this is probably quite a good place to leave this one, isn't it? And start thinking that, next week, let's think about how do we tell the stories that might be triggered by those slides. What do you reckon?
Yeah, storytelling. Yeah, let's do that next week.
Big subject. Questions down below. Take care, guys. See you soon, Graham.
Cheers all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.